Final steps in jury selection had a twist. This is where I have a problem with what happened. In proceedings that repeatedly stalled as Brooks battled Darrell over courtroom procedures and routines, the jury wasn't finalized in the typical way. Now, mind you, Kyle Rittenhouse's jury was seated in one day. Kim Potter's jury took a week, 2 weeks, something like that, a crazy amount of time. It was like 6 days or something for them to seat Kim. It felt like 6 days. It might have been 4. But it took a long time to seat the jury for Kim Potter. So like a 2-day jury selection is still actually kind of fast, especially for a national news story. About 8 people were struck for cause for either hardships or because they said they didn't think they could be fair. Cool. They left out the they didn't think could be fair. When it got to the point where each side could exercise preemptory strikes without a stated reason, Brooks tried to strike out all the names on the list. Based. What's your first preemptory strike, Mr. Brooks? All of them. Everybody. I strike the whole jury. I strike every jury. I strike any jury. Darrell declared he had waived his right to the strikes. Each time it was his turn to strike a juror, and he either tried to strike them all, wouldn't strike any, the clerk would pick a juror at random from a tumbler. This kind of bothers me, actually. This kind of bothers me a lot. Like now, I've seen 2 places pre-trial where the judge has made some moves that I'm not sure are constitutional at all. Be Real says, Lamau, he ain't getting his way, F him. No, this is a problem. If you think his way is what he's doing versus his way being setting up an appeal for a mistrial on an impossible to win case, I mean, not giving him his strikes on his jury, that's kind of like the prosecution presumably got their strikes. I know it's funny for the trial, but it won't be funny if this guy gets convicted but then wins on appeal for prejudice against him in a year or 2 years and walks out. That's the scary aspect of this. I mean, I liked what Steve Gosney was saying this morning. The judge needs to declare him incompetent to stand trial, waive his right to represent himself, and reappoint public defenders and possibly remove him from the courtroom. That's honestly, like, that's the way they should have handled voir dire. If he was so disruptive and say, you know, Mr. Brooks, I found you competent at a prior hearing. That was predicated on your ability to understand the rules of the court. You've been given repeated opportunity to understand the rules of the court and the setting that you are in, and you've demonstrated that you cannot or will not do so. You are not competent to stand in your own defense. I'm going to appoint you counsel. You can object, and I will appoint them over your objection, and they will run the case. That is what should have happened at that point. It's insane, the steps that they're taking to give this guy his quote unquote right to represent himself. But they're doing so in ways that I don't trust at all. But I'm going to ask Steve Gosney when he's on next. I'll ask Branca if he's ever seen anything like this. I'll ask potentially criminal Sean if he's seen anything like this. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, taking away strikes in a criminal trial, like preemptory strikes, is crazy to me. That's a bit much. But I am not like super experienced trial attorney, right? Like maybe there's a huge precedent for this. It's very possible that I have no fucking idea. Like I'm not representing that, oh, this is way out of the ordinary. It just strikes me as weird. And I don't like things being weird in a major case with someone who's a monster, because the monster needs all of the due process protections given to them so they can go to prison and never fucking come out ever.